Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. So that probably sounds a little different than you heard it before, and that's because I'm doing a new thing. Previously, I was using the gating built into Console X to work with the drums. But this time, we're using Airwindows DeNoise. And I can show that to you on drums alone. This is Airwindows DeNoise. So what we're doing here is using it to modify all of the sounds from this. This is the normal sound, to a more artificial sound, using it for gating. So what might that be like? You can go from here to this. So what this is in fact a multiband noise gate. You can use it as one. What you're seeing with all of these controls here, you got high, high, mid, mid, L mid, and bass, and sub. And then there's a speed control and a dry wet. And dry wet will do the same thing that we had before. You get to go to just completely dry. I think that's doing completely dry. And what we're doing is manipulating the way these kick in. So let me go over to this rather unusual sound. So this is being done by not gating the highs, and then the threshold of high mids is not very far up, but we have extremely high thresholds on like sub, bass, high mid, L mid, and so on. If we take these down, we're back to a normal sound again. Because the way this works, I'm also going to show you some fun things about speed here, is if we turn this up, it's going to gate more aggressively because we're increasing the threshold upon which we'll start gating. See, it's doing a funny, weird thing here. And that's partly because we have the threshold so high that it's constantly gating. However, if we don't turn the threshold up as high, it's not going to gate out that thing quite as much. For instance, here we have, for instance, hats. And we can make it so that only the very loudest hat stuff comes through. The rest of this is being silenced, but only on that high band. And this is how you would turn it to gating. You can do it with other frequency bands as well, until everything's completely gated out, because it's a multi-band noise gate. So what I'm doing here is, this is demonstrating what you can do if you're letting certain frequencies through ungated, but you're trying to suppress noise on other frequencies. The tone bands are somewhat interactive, which is why this becomes so interesting. And if we've got all the bands set sort of to the middle there, we're applying the noise gating to every single band, but at the same sort of threshold level. Actually, you know what I think I have? I think I have a inverse dry wet here. I didn't realize I had that going on. So that was interesting. I guess take it as read that that's what's going on, because that's significant. But as you see, we can Or maybe what I have is a been a while since I've done this. I'm working through my backlog. That might be some kind of delta function, in which case having it just barely off of the very lowest setting will give you a mostly dry and partly wet sound. And we'll bypass that. Yeah, that's what it is. Entirely dry on that control gives you sort of a delta function. It's how much is being changed. So why would that become useful? Well, suppose we have nothing happening at all. In that case, full wet is the normal sound. Or we could switch over to, let's switch over to the kick for this one. That's this middle control. If I set this to fully wet, we got no change between dry setting and the wet setting. I can bypass it or whatever, but if we then turn it all the way down, that delta function kicks in. And now we get to hear when the gate starts to kick in. So we can gate stuff like low mid and the very highest. And if we switch back over to full wet, it does in fact sound like this is the dry sound, but we're gating out the low mids and we're gating out the highs. And that's tightening up our kick sound a little bit. We can also tighten it up with bass or even the subs. And we get to fade between our dry sound here and the effecty sound. And all the way off, again, this is not an inverse dry wet. This is delta function on the driest of dry. And that's what's being taken away by the gating. So if we do this, we're gating out almost all the highs completely. We can even tighten up the subs a little bit, maybe. And then our full wet becomes a relatively normal, fully gated kick sound, which is the kind of thing that I was doing with the snare. I was making a weird snare sound out of this. And then here's our regular snare mic, and this is what's being taken away. I'm actually taking subs out here. So then if we put in the full gating, there's a weird little side effect going on. So let me show you what that side effect is doing. I think I've demonstrated the part of this where you turn everything down to nothing and there's no gating happening. So wet is the same as fully dry. Turn it to fully dry, as in literally zero, and now we get to hear what's actually being gated out. So we can try to gate out the highs this way. And we're kind of doing that. It's doing a fairly good job of gating just only the highs. But there's a final trick to do with this. Here's that kick again. Now if we turn on the gating to do some of this stuff, let's just gate everything lots. Note what speed is doing here. Because this is using, if I'm not mistaken, this is using my weird Bezier compressing type stuff around this. Not as a compressor, but handling the speed of the gate. So you'll notice a change in the sound. And you'll notice that if we gate things a slightly different way, for just a very clear kick sound, but we're not gating the extreme lows. In fact, let's also not gate the bass, but we'll gate the low mid as hard as possible. Listen to what happens with speed as I change speed. It's kicking in faster, and that's being able to enclose the entire kick within the gate. We're listening to delta, we're listening to what's being taken out. And now the speed is interacting with the way it's gating. And now it's hardly gating at all. Now what does that sound like at full wet when we're actually listening to the gate and not the delta? Check this out. We start getting other effects happening. And if we speed it right up, we get basically nothing but a thump out of it. But what if we did the opposite? In fact, what if we did it on an actual drum kit sound? This one over here. At the moment, we're not gating anything. What if we gated the lows? We're going to gate the lows, we're going to leave the highs. So here's where the speed control starts getting real interesting. This is still only the delta. This is only what's actually being taken out all the way up to this. Let's hear the dry on this. At top speed, it's a very aggressive sound. Then we start slowing it down a little bit. That's just coming out of DeNoise. It's a way of manipulating DeNoise to do weird noises. In fact, we could do that with just straight up the hat all by itself. Let's try. Full wet. Gate all the lows as hard as we can. And you start bringing speed in. There's a certain way it ends up hitting the highs in that way. Let's gate more of the lows and mids and things. Faster speed and things get messy. There we are, making a weird noise. And we'll leave that. It's not terribly loud, but we'll mix it with everything else. And then let's bring in that kick finally. Isn't that interesting? And so we can mix it all with this. And there you have it. So you can use Airwindows DeNoise to do weird special effects. Just experiment with it. Who knows what you can make happen. And you can also use it to cut noise on normal, ordinary sounds if you want. That's another thing that you could maybe do. Oh, by the way, there's a couple of other things. One of them is that I'm working on another plugin that's coming. That's on the bass. But then there is a final other thing. A friend of mine made this. This is Short Circuit XT. Now, I didn't have time to do anything particularly useful with it. Pretty much with this, all I'm doing is, this has just gone into beta. Short Circuit XT is from the same people who make Surge XT. It is a big old sampler that does all of the things, much like Surge XT does all of the things. And I'm going to be digging into this, making some sampler instruments using it. I don't believe I've gotten anywhere near mastering all the stuff that this has going on, because I just downloaded it and tried to make a noise happen with it. So what I did was I loaded up an old SFZ file that I had. So that's what you're hearing. Is it's playing Rickenbacker extras sound. So what you're basically hearing is a Rickenbacker bass sampler instrument that only does special effects, like slides and switches and clunks and things. And it's recorded in stereo. I made a bunch of these a long while ago, and they were in SFZ. I think I put them out. You can download this if you look carefully enough on my website. I'm pretty sure Rickenbacker bass is where that's found. And I just loaded it up and was able to use it immediately inside this. Now what it's doing is, granted, kind of ridiculous, because it's just special effects, and I didn't have time to do anything with it. I didn't have time to do anything other than make weird, strange noises with what was already inside my Rickenbacker bass extras thing. But one of the things that's happening there is there's a flanger on there that's built into the sampler. This sampler has a bunch of things in it. You will discover for yourself what odd stuff might be living within this. And I'll be putting out the amplifier that this bass sound is built on at some point after that. I'm working on all this stuff. And that's going to keep me busy. I hope you enjoy DeNoise. It was a strange journey making this one, let me tell you. It was on a live stream, and it just kind of turned into this thing where I was able to make bizarre percussive sounds with it. And it just sort of got up and went. I don't know whether you will find it more useful as a background noise remover, a proper DeNoise at multiple bands. It should do that job pretty well. But I honestly find that maybe the weird special effects it does are even more fun. And again, this Short Circuit XT thing, I cannot direct you to it enough. If you've enjoyed Surge XT, go and check it out. It's in beta now, so they are still developing it, but they're eager to have people start playing with it. And I'm going to be starting to make some sample libraries, because one of the things that I'm doing, as you know, I do a bunch of different things. For instance, I've made a little note for myself saying this week's vinyl records for people to listen to and see in meter and dark meter. I'm going to be putting out Yes's Astral Traveler for $10 and up patrons. That's one of the ones where you get to see it all the way through, but I'm going to try something else. This week, for everybody, not just $10 and up patrons, I'm going to put out the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows with a instance of Content High D, which I've been tinkering with, by the way, on it, so that you can see every second of the track through meter and dark meter and see what you have to do to reproduce that sound in my metering software. It will show you what you need the sounds to do in order to clone and replicate that sound. But Content ID will not let you hear it all. Content ID will play little brief clips of it. And if my calculations are correct, that should get through it being booted off of YouTube. Like, I should be able to play that openly because you only get to hear little snippets every now and then. But you get to see in my metering software what this classic track off of Beatles' Revolver will actually do and what you would have to do to duplicate that sound. One of the most hideous hit record sounds ever to exist. That should be fun. I mean, if it works. If it doesn't work, it'll be Content ID'd off of the internet, even with all of my attempts to hide it. But I'm going to see whether I can do it, like open and on the main Airwindows channel, whereas the $10 and up ones, those are on a side channel. If you are a Patreon subscriber at $10 and up, you will see those listed in Patreon announcements and stuff, and be able to see where the secret videos are. But yeah, I'm going to see whether I can show some of these secrets to audio. So now I have to go off and make some more videos in the introductions for each of those. And I'll get busy doing that. Hope you like the new DeNoise plugin. Talk to you later, and I'll see some of you on my live streams in this coming week. Bye-bye.